Another very common method used by hackers to hide their individual actions as well as the files that they might use is a technique called steganography, which is basically hiding files inside of other files. And this is also often referred to as hiding things in plain sight because we're going to use the steganography techniques to mask our individual files and our various actions. Oftentimes, viruses, rootkits, and various other malware can actually live inside of files that appear harmless. So a standard picture file that someone emails to you might have a Stego attached file inside of it that could be malicious. It's also very common to hide these files in media files such as JPEGs, picture files, MP3s are also a common target, as well as document files. Probably one of the more popular methods of utilizing steganography technology is NTFS alternate data streams, or ADS. And the basic idea here is that we use the built-in fork technology of NTFS. And what I mean when I say fork technology is the ability for a file to represent multiple scenarios, or our ability to be able to fork that file out into multiple streams of data, ultimately allowing multiple files to exist where only one is shown. Steganography is extremely difficult to detect, and there are only a handful of tools out there that allow you to actually identify files that contain alternate data streams. There are some forensics utilities out there that assist in this, but for the most part, you really need to expect alternate data streams in order to find them. It's highly unrealistic for you to scan an entire drive for ADS, and you will find lots of those because many Windows files use that technology as well. So this is a very effective method for us to hide our tools and our files. We can utilize this to hide our individual hacker tools and utilize this on just about any operating systems using built-in technology. So this is definitely a major asset to us regardless of the operating system that we're penetrating. So let's take a quick look at an example of steganography in action. And we're actually going to focus on NTFS alternate data streams, even though there are lots of tools out there that allow us to hide files and files. So we're going to go ahead and focus on these three files, dnsenum.txt, which is a file we used earlier when we were dumping DNS databases so that we can enumerate information. We're also going to use a hacker tool called SMB Relay version 2 that allows us to steal credentials and hashes off the network as a man-in-the-middle attack. And we're going to focus on utilizing the doc.doc file, which is a company standard document written by employee number 1. So this is actually a fairly innocent file. People expect to see these, and it might already exist on the file system of a system that you're hacking. So we're going to open up a command prompt. And the first thing we're going to do to kind of demonstrate how this is going to work is we're going to create an MD5 sum of the files that we're using so that we can look at those when everything's said and done to see if we make any changes to them. And specifically, I want to focus on the doc.doc file itself. So we're going to use Unix utils to generate an MD5 sum of doc.doc. And we're going to port that over into a sum file so that we can reference it later. So we'll have this file open and we'll minimize it for now. So now that we know exactly what the doc.doc file is, how big it's going to be, such as file size, 171 bytes for example, and we'll transfer that information over to our notepad document as well. So now that we have that information on reference, we're going to go ahead and hide the SMB Relay tool inside of the document. So we're putting an executable of malicious intent inside of a document file. We're going to use the type command, which is actually built into the Windows operating system. So at this point, we've actually ported the SMB Relay 2 executable into the document and renamed the executable to smb.exe. Now let's go back and do an MD5 sum of that document. As you can see, the sum is exactly the same. So there are very little chances for us to be able to detect that that executable is hidden. And in order to prove that that executable does in fact exist, we're going to use the start command. to kick that executable off. And as you can see, it executed as the following file name. Now the reason that this is so effective for us, we can hide our files and our tools in plain sight and call them up at will because we know exactly where they are. No one else will be able to detect that those exist. So if we simply go in and remove SMBRelay2.exe from the file system, at this point no one can see where that file's at. But we can continue to launch that file because it lives inside of that document file. And this document file can actually be moved between NTFS file systems, and it will retain the properties of that additional executable file. We can even take this a step further, and we'll go ahead and MD5 sum it again, and then we're going to put another one in there. We're actually going to hide our DNS-enum text file because that's malicious information that we want to utilize later, and we'll port that also into the doc.doc file as dns.txt. So now that information's been saved. We'll do another sum on the file. And again, as we can see, the file hasn't changed. Now if we want to launch that, we simply use the Notepad application, or we can use DOS Edit or any of the other reading utilities available to us, and we'll call that file. And as you can see, we're able to read that information. So we're going to exit out of that, and we're going to delete our DNS-enum.txt file because now all of our hacking tools and everything that we've utilized so far is gone. But yet, it's still available to us, but it's inside a document file and hidden very well from view.